Okay, maybe at the beginning of the course I explain you how these exams are supposed to work. But let's remember that so that it's okay. This one, of course, is in Italian, but it basically will work. The dynamic is this one. I will upload a document in Google Drive. How is this one called? Google Docs. There, you will have like all the specifications for the exam. The specifications, well, basically consist of a basic description of the project, the description of the requirements. There are some logistic requisites, and then the technical ones. The technical ones basically concerns to using the same technologies and the same things we have been doing in the course. So using HTML5, CSS, nothing, Bootstrap, okay, Flask, SQLite, Flask login, so nothing very different from, I mean, the same things that we have been doing here. Okay, some specifications, technical specifications, and last year this was an extra, the deployment on Python Anywhere, but this year I think it will be mandatory because I already gave you, last year it worked that like this deployment were the points, the extra points that I gave you to reach like the loader. But since we did the assignment this year, the midterm assignment, we will include this into the requisites of the application to do the deployment. That is what you will learn to do on Friday, so it should not be anything difficult. Okay, and then you will find the description. That is basically the exam, okay? So the description is something, I'm sorry, this is in Italian, but basically I will tell you what this is about. Is, for instance, we want to create an application. In this case, it was for a music festival. Do you remember that I showed you some examples in the first class? And the specifications of the exam will be something written in this way, like a natural language explaining what the application should do. And based on this, you should be able to design and to abstract which are the functionalities, how are you going to design the application, how are you going to design the database, always following the bottom-up approach. Well, it's basically that. So for instance, here I won't be giving you the instructions or the guidelines saying something as you should create a new table with these specific fields, or you should create 3 tables with, it is up to you how to design the application, how to implement the functionalities. Okay, and what I was going to show you is that it basically works that I upload the Google Docs document, I share the link with you, and in a first moment you have the option for like 3 or 4 days to ask questions. So this is before the 20 days, okay? Because you will be given 20 days to work on the exam. But before those 20 days, you will be given like 3 days to ask any question you want on over the text. Why? Because as we saw last time, each time that we are designing our web applications, there are some things that we discover when trying to design, when trying to reason on the requirements. So for instance, this one here, someone was asking if it was possible for an artist to perform several times in the festival. Okay, so the application was about a music festival, and someone asked, is it possible for an artist to perform several times in the festival? Why this question is important? Because for sure, probably, depending on this answer, the design of the database is different. No? Because now I have a performance with a specific artist, and there is no one-one relation, but one-to-many or something like that. So I'll give you like 3 days in which you will be asked to read the text, to try to reason the text, understand everything, and do questions. Once those 3 days are finished, I will not enable, I will disable the questions, and that will be the definite text over which we will be asked to implement the functionalities. Okay, and then you will have 20 days. You will upload the application on the portale. That's everything. And then the exam will consist, it will start from this day, that is the 15 for instance, the 29 for instance. It will start, the exams will start this day, but they will span probably across that week, because as I already also explained you, the exam consists basically that you come, we open the final project together, we execute that, and we do like a live assessment of the exam. Okay, so I will allocate each of you 20 minutes, and the way to get those slots is that I will publish also a link in which you can choose which slot on which slot you want to present. Obviously, depending on the availability of the slots and which ones are taken by anyone. So there won't be a single day for the exam, but it will be spanned across maybe the next week after that, or the week of 29 in June. Okay. Okay, well, that's all. So far, we have 55 students for the first exam. Okay, for the first appeal. Questions? Yeah.
What about the final test?
Good question. And in the text here, I will include an extra requirement that basically depends on the text that I will create. So for instance, in this case, if it was a festival, so maybe the extra requirement would be implement the administrator, a dashboard for the festival administrator that enables to check the statistics of the festival. So the prova finale at the end would be, for the ones that have to do a prova finale, implementing some extra requirement that I think it's the easiest way to deal with that. And I will indicate here in the text for optional, yeah, for the ones that have to do the prova finale, you have to implement this functionality. Yeah. We might, yeah, because well, I don't know how here in the Politecnico how it works, but for the ones that have to graduate first, when are you supposed to, up to when? 1st July. Oopa.
Actually, the rule is that you have to attend the exam before 1st July. It's not a problem to receive the mark after 1st July.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, because in the past, maybe in the exams, in the appeals that I have had in the past, the first appeal was a little bit before. So for instance, the last year I could prepare the text before the classes were finished, because it was the 20 days before were still on when we were having lesson. I don't know why this year is so far, because it is 29, so it's the first time that I face that situation. But if that's the case, maybe we can say that the 29 slots are allocated for the people that need to finish within the 1st July.
It's not an actual problem, because the important thing is that the date of the exam is before 1st July. So the date is 29, so it's fine.
Però but it means that before the 1st July, the grade should be registered in the portale? the grade should be registered in the portale before the 1st July?
No, it can be also after 1st July.
Ah, okay, so in that case it's not, because officially it's 29. So even if, for instance, you take the oral examination the 2 or 3 June, it's July, sorry, it's fine because, okay, no. So in that case, we shouldn't have any problem with that. Because officially it's 29, so it...
Yes, that's what matters, that officially it's from 29.
Okay.
But it's just better for us. It's not a problem for the university.
But what happens if I... Allora, se io per dire registro il tuo voto cosa, tipo a luglio, c'è qualche problema?
No, non c'è nessun problema, soltanto io devo fare l'iscrizione con riserva alla sessione di laurea.
Ok.
E me la accetteranno dopo la scadenza.
Ah, ok, bene. Sì, comunque, cioè, per dire negli slot che io pubblico, solitamente facciamo tipo, e questo lo farò anche con il professore De Russis, quindi ogni giorno ci saranno parecchi slot, perché ci metto in teoria tipo mezz'ora con ognuno, quindi facciamo tutto il giorno, dovrebbero essere, facciamo 4 ore al mattino, 4 ore al pomeriggio, e ognuno farebbe 8, 16 per 2, 32, quindi sì, in realtà quel primo giorno potremmo avere in teoria tipo qualcosa del genere, tipo 20, 30, quindi sì, in teoria dovremmo essere a posto con quello. Ok, questions, any other question? Perfect. Okay, and I will also try before the exam to publish for the ones who submitted the midterm assignment, to publish the grade or the points that you got from the midterm assignment. So that in advance, before doing the exam, you already know how many points you got allocated from that midterm assignment. Which I remember the maximum number of points is 3, but okay. Okay, so the last part, what we will see today, concerns okay, what I told you at the beginning of the lesson. So if, for instance, I try to log in and my registration is unsuccessful, right now we're not giving any feedback to the user on what happened. We just redirect him, but he is not able to know if he was able to log in, if he was able to do the operation he was trying to do. This is, of course, critical in a web application because, as I told you before, and as you saw last week with the Professor De Russis, the interaction with the users and how clear the application is presented to the users is fundamental, because even if we have an application that technically behaves super well, if it is not usable or if it's not understandable, it's basically useless. So what we will use for giving that feedback is something called Flash. Flash is something that belongs is a module or a class that anyway belongs to Flask. So in Flask we have this Flash option. How does it work? It is super simple. Let me show you. For instance, here in the authentication, that is the one that I did the example with. A single tutor, sign up, register, authenticate. So for instance, right now, when the user was not authenticated, what we were doing was printing a message in the console. But this is useless for the end user, because just we, the administrators of the application, can see the console. So what we want is, instead of showing this message just in the console, we want to retrieve that message to the users. So here what I will do is I will be invoking this function that is called Flash with a specific message and then with a second parameter that in this case I will set it to danger. Why do you think I use danger in this case?
Maybe like the style of the pop-up.
Yeah, because then I will get that specific message, gather that specific message, and it will, this second parameter will help me to deal with the styling of the message. So I don't know if you remember, but in Bootstrap, the ones or the things that are set with danger are typically the ones that are set in the red box or with the red, associated with the red color, okay? So in this case, since this corresponds to something that didn't go well, I will use the danger specification. And of course, I will do the same here. And here, instead of print result, that was something that we were doing before, we will say Okay, so up to now, super simple. We're just saying that each time, rather than just printing the result in the console, that is not something visible to the user, we will flash that specific message. That flashing function receives two parameters. One of them corresponds to the text that we want to show, and the other one is the one that we will use to determine which styling are we going to give to the message that will be shown to the user. Okay? If we execute this right now, nothing happens. Nothing happens because we haven't assigned a portion of the page and we are going to show those messages. Okay, so we have to define a portion in the website where we want to graphically show those specific messages. So where do you think we want to show those messages, or which portion of the website do we want to show those messages? For sure, I would say probably here, no? Okay. That this one, and take into account that these messages, or this zone is like the generic zone for showing all of the possible messages of this style that the application might be showing to a user. So in my case, I think it's a good option to show them in the common portion of the web, or in the portion of the website or of the web application that is common to all of the pages. That is the base. Okay, because the base is the one that is being inherited by all of the pages in the web application. So for that reason, we will open here our base.html. And here, basically, after the header is closed and before the main navigation bar, so in this portion here, below the header and above the navigation bar, we will paste this. So I basically created this container fluid box with a specific margin on the top, and the syntax or the code in here is basically a copy paste. Okay, this is like a recipe that you can use because it's generally how the messages are dealt with. So basically here we define these messages variable by invoking the messages that have been flashed by the application. So here we get the messages that have been flashed, and I set this with categories equal to true. What does it mean, the categories equal to true? It means the second parameter that we were passing on the flash function. So when we were saying danger, when we were saying success, it is basically the categories that we are getting here. This function basically checks if there are any messages to show. Okay, if there are messages in the queue, it's not a queue, but let's try to imagine in the queue to show. okay? And well, it basically iterates over them. As you can see here, we use the category of the message to use the bootstrap style that corresponds to that specific category. It basically means that here we are not forced to write specifically success or specifically danger, but we are using those categories because they match with the style that we want to use in Bootstrap. Okay, these are basically Bootstrap classes that are the ones that fade in the message and fade out the message. Okay, this is an alert. Here, what do I print? The message associated with the flash function that I showed before. So it will show the message, for instance, the user doesn't exist or the password is wrong. That were the ones that I defined before. And then we have the button close, okay? The button to close the application, the message. Okay, I'm sorry, this one should not be here. And with so for instance, now it shows the user does not exist. Okay, I can close it from here and let's try again. Login. So the user doesn't exist. Now at least it shows some message. There was the password is wrong. Pay attention because, for instance, in this case, what we are doing is not like the most desirable action because we don't want to give a clue to the user if the user exists but the password is wrong, okay? I did that just for the purpose of showing you how we are distinguishing the different cases in the authentication. But then in the final version of the application, the message in any of the cases should be the authentication was not successful without giving the hint of the fact that the user exists but the password was wrong or that the user doesn't exist. Because we are giving a hint for a potential hacker or something like that to say, okay, the user exists, now you can try different passwords to see if you can enter, okay? So just keep that in mind. And here, okay, let's suppose that it works. I don't remember. Okay, so now, for instance, it shows welcome back flash. That is the name that I gave to that specific user. I don't know if you notice that the message is not shown in the page where I did the authentication, but it's shown in the page after that. So it is shown in the page that we are being redirected to, which is perfect, because when we do the authentication, do you see that here we redirect the user to the home? And the message is being shown after the redirection. So in this aspect, it makes sense to ask if there are messages, because it's somehow that the new web page or the page that I've been redirected to asks if there are messages to show. That was why I was telling you it's kind of a cue or something that he remembers too, or that's something that stays there, and the user then asks if there are still messages to show. Then I will display them, I will iterate over them, and for each message I will display them in an alert box like this. There might be also the case in which we want to, or we could show more than one message. Now it doesn't come to my mind an example, a specific example in which we want to show welcome back and a different message, but it could happen to show two notifications. But for now, I think this one makes more sense for what we have been doing so far. Questions on this? I think technically it's super easy. And from the logical point of view, what I was saying you before, giving feedback to the user is super important. So don't forget in your application to use this mechanism as much as needed to give the user a hint of what is happening. So it is not just with the authentication, but if, for instance, the user is trying to allocate a new, or to book, or doing some reservation or some functionality, and the things didn't go right, show a message. Or even if the things were right and he was able to allocate or to book something, also we can show a message. So up to now, this is like the easiest mechanism that we have to be constantly giving feedback on the actions that the users are completing in the platform. Okay, questions? Nice. So let's do this. Today, as I told you at the beginning of the class, I will be uploading the text of the next lab that is about the deployment of the application in Python Anywhere. The text of this lab is written as a tutorial, step by step. So it's something that you can, if you want, you can start to work now. I mean now, immediately. And by yourself, try to upload any Flask application we have been developing on the platform. Okay. Otherwise, on Friday we will be working on that. Next week, okay, I will devote some time to JavaScript, to something very basic about JavaScript. So just that you have the notion that it exists, JavaScript, and some basic uses that we can set to JavaScript into our current web application. And then we can start working on exam simulations. That I think it's something that might be more useful for you in this moment. And I will also start working on the text of the first Apello, so that we can all together discuss the text. And nice. So I think today we can stop, and we'll see you on Friday. Okay.